Hello, my friends. Good news, school has ended here. We have started summer, which means I can reclaim some of my table space in my house. And so I wanted to get started on Folklore, the Affliction. Remember, we were going to play this little, what would you call it? Community journal version. This was the print and play I got off of Board Game Geek, but we're going to set it up according to the basic rules. Now, this is a campaign style game, so we're only going to be doing, just the tiniest tip of the iceberg. And like a lot of campaign RPG type games, you have first off of the world map. And this is as we travel from city to city, we will be having different adventures. We can have road events, which are, a little bit kinder, I think, and off-road events. And these are ones, if we want to move quicker, we can leave the beaten path, but pay the consequences. So part of the game is moving in between city points and adventuring throughout the countryside. The other part of the game is once we get into an actual town, or we hit the tombs, or we head into the woods, wherever we are, then the game does have tiles that I'm sure you're all used to, that we'll set up for our sort of zoomed in adventure moments. All right, so I'm going to be switching back and forth between the big world and these little local events. But before we can begin, we have to decide who we are going to be. And the game comes with 6 different pre-made characters for you. The Arcanist, the Archaeologist, Telepath, Avenging Madman, Exorcist, and Witch Hunter. And they all have like a lore tree, and you can progress them and upgrade them over time. We're probably not going to see a lot of that because ours is sort of a one-off. So I'm just going to play 2 characters, I think, just to make tracking easy. And I've decided to do a father-daughter duo, the Archaeologist and his daughter, the Arcanist. So I made these little pouches for them. They come with a whole bunch of different stuff. And the first thing you have is the character folder, I guess would be the best way to describe this. We have a little backstory of him, and you get to choose a focus. We can either be an archaeologist who is an explorer, and we're going to gain these abilities, or an archaeologist who is a scholar, and we're going to gain these abilities. So we'll have to pick one of these 2. Inside, it tells you what you start with. So our archaeologist begins with a whip, very indie, which I adore. In fact, I think we're definitely going to call him indie. And he's also an iconographer, so he is going to have a passive ability as well. So what we're going to do, I've already done that, is go through the ability decks, and we're going to pull out these 2 starting cards. Once per round is when we can use our crack the whip, and this one is passive, so we sort of always have that engaged. In addition, we're going to go through the items and pull out a whip, and he begins with 1 starting bandage. Now, when we go into cities, right, everyone's going to have different things they want to do in the cities, and different abilities and sort of upgrades they're going to want to get. And every character is going to interact with town services a little different. So, Indy, our archaeologist, has an alchemist, apothecary, chapel. He has something he can do at the church, at the gypsies, at the stable. So we can, these are for him. These are his abilities to give him a sense of character. And like I said, he also has a lore tree, and as we gain lore, we'll be able to upgrade him. So this is very cool little folder, and they also come with, this is sort of, I like to think of it as these abilities here interact with the world here, right? This is where this is. This is all the extra locations and all of his sort of big ticket items. He also comes with a smaller card, and this is what you're going to use more when you're in an actual event. And these give the ever-present stats: health, defense, might, damage bonus, power, and his skills. So he will be doing skill checks, so it makes sense. He's very good in archaeology. He has a very good awareness and a little bit of trickery, because we all know sometimes you have to fast talk your way out of things. He starts with, like we said, a whip and a bandage. He has a knowledge of rituals, and he has a special ability and some keywords. What's cool about this game is if he is ever to die, he can return as a ghost. So on the back of all of these cards, we have his ghost stats. Now, hopefully, we won't need that. Hopefully he will stay alive. Now my version just comes with little standees. I don't know if you can get little miniatures. Maybe you can, I'm not sure. But my version just has the little standees that we're going to use for him. So we need to pick his path and make sure he has all of his starting equipment. I'll put him aside. And that's Indy. And he, of course, has a daughter in our game who is an arcanist. So I think, let's take a look at her really quick. Her little things fall out. Her backstory, and she can either be a numerologist or a seeker. So we'll have to look through and see which ones we want to do. She starts with Mythos Arcanic. She has a runic dice once per round, and Seek the Chakra as well. So she has 2 cards she can pull from. Whoops. Unlike Indy, she doesn't have a whip. She starts with a stiletto. She also gets a ritual that we're going to pick at random, and a bandage. These are her extra locations that she can interact with, as well as her own personal lore tree. Her stat card, she's an archaeology, makes sense, her dad being Indiana Jones and all. I think she'll be Miriam, right? Wasn't that Indy's girlfriend? Pretty sure it was. She has a lot of nerve, however, and she has a very high knowledge of the occult. Some special abilities, some forbidden keywords. So the first thing we need to do is set up our characters ready for exploring. And here's her little standee as well. World set. Let's get our character set, and then we will launch right in. So let's start with Mr. Jones here, and let's decide what kind of archaeologist he's going to be. He's an explorer and scholar focused on the ancient and unexplained. He's become convinced that our history has been shaped by beings and forces beyond nature and science. He has traveled far and wide in his quest for knowledge and now explores the depths of the supernatural to gain his power. So, is Mr. Jones an explorer or a scholar? If he's an explorer, your insight has been drawn from your extensive travels and interactions with cultures of every kind. You prefer the rough and tumble lifestyle learned from tribal peoples, and you have an uncanny knack for staying alive. His ability is, whenever you successfully pass an archaeology check, you recover 2 vita, or health, and due to your extensive knowledge of anthropology, you receive a +5 might bonus against mortal foes. All right. If he is a scholar, however, you have obtained your knowledge academically from the study of manuscripts, tomes, scrolls, and written histories. Your knowledge of artifacts and relics is unsurpassed, and your wit is peerless. You are driven by your search for knowledge of the obscure and the arcane. I know you pass Archaeology 10 at the beginning of any combat to gain +5 defense due to the research you've performed on your enemies, and once per story, you may re-roll 1 skill check. I don't know. I feel like Indy is going to be, he's going to be an explorer, right? So let's take this, and we'll have to remember this little ability here, that he's going to recover health, and he's going to have +5 might against mortal foes. So with that in mind, let's get his character set up. All right. And we know he starts with 2 abilities. The first is his active, which is called, as we know, Crack the Whip, and he will deal additional 1d4 damage on a hit with a whip type weapon. Now, we can do this once per round, and that means basically a round is Indy goes, Miriam goes, the bad guys go, and then it comes back to Indy's turn again, right? So that's a round. Once for combat would be you can only do it once while you're encountering those foes, and then I think there's one more like once per game or whatever, or chapter, right? And that's once at the start of every adventure. So this one he can do every time it comes back around to him. He can do extra damage with his whip. It will, however, cost him 1 power point. And we were going to have to track those. And the way this game does it is we start with 5 power points, and right here there's this tiny little blue arrow. And what you end up doing is you take these little double-sided trackers, and we're going to turn it to blue. This is the power point track system. And we're going to line that arrow up with 5. And now we know he may crack the whip 5 times, at which point every time he does, we tick it down until he is at 0. But that's how we're going to track that. The other half, there's a little red arrow. So we're going to take another tracker, flip it to the Vita side, and he starts off with 23 Vita. So we're going to put that there as well. He has a nice little combat token where you can decide if you want to have an attack stance or defense stance. And that's once per round. He can crack a whip, so it makes sense, of course, that he has a whip. This is a range 2, so it has a little bit of range. And you can exhaust to make a target immobilized after a successful attack. So we can whip him, I guess, exhaust your whip to tangle him up and hit. And now you can't use your whip, but the bad guy is tangled. Here we have the dice that we roll, if it's one-handed or two-handed, and how much it would cost to buy it. All right, so we have our whip, which is awesome. And he gets 1 passive ability, which is the fact that he's an archaeologist and he is an explorer and also a cook. This is interesting. When you use a consumable, instead of discarding it, pass Archaeology 6 to keep the item or token by placing it on this card. It can be used once more before it is discarded. Only 1 item at a time can be placed on this card. Now remember, if we pass this, we're also going to gain some health. So he is very handy at being able to reuse things and get extra uses out of him due to his explorer knowledge. All right, he is all set up and ready to go. Mr. Jones is ready for his adventure. Let's set his daughter up. Here, of course, we have the daughter, Miriam. She is an arcanist who seeks hidden knowledge and mastery of the secrets of the universe. She is a student of the ancient systems of numerology and chakric mysticism. As a collector of lost knowledge, she has found an old parchment torn from the pages of a much larger book known as the Necronomicon. The arcanist seeks to find the remainder of this obscure text and explore the other dimensions of which it speaks. So, we know that she is a numerologist, and if we take this path with her, she will have studied and learned the lore of numbers and their mystical meanings. Once per chapter, she can spend a power point to re-roll any of her dice, and once per story, she may roll 2 dice instead of 1 for any roll she wishes in the game and take her choice of the higher or lower of the 2 values. So she can play with numbers a little bit. That's cute. She can also be a seeker, though. And the seeker has 2 auras and can use them as long as she has at least 1 unspent power point. These auras are represented by a double-sided token with a light and dark side. Once per encounter, the seeker may activate 1 of her auras. Each is aura 1 and lasts for 4 rounds. The light aura is a circle of protection, giving her absorption 1 and allies in the aura plus 5 defense. This does not stack with other absorption bonuses, usable during a skirmish, all right? Or she can cast a dark aura that causes 1 damage to all foes that move into the aura on their turn. So let's be a seeker. That sounds like a cool ability. So let's see if I can find this little token. Assuming it's this little guy. So here's her light and dark aura that she can cast. Now it doesn't look like it takes, yeah, it says as long as she has 1 unspent power point. It doesn't say it costs a power point, so I'm guessing that as long as she has any power left, she can use her auras. And, right, she started with a runic dice. You sense the future and your destiny. Use when you draw an item card. Draw 2 and then choose 1 to keep and 1 to discard. It will cost a power point, and you can use it once per round. All right, that's a cool one. And she has Seek the Chakra. Deal an additional +2 damage on a successful melee hit. Again, once per round, costs 1 power point. Now, luckily, she has in her possession a stiletto. Gives her a flank 1, +4 to might, and how much it costs. So if she hits with her stiletto, I think she can add some extra damage to it as well. So that's pretty cool. So let's get that for her. Let's set up her trackers as well. She starts with a 5 for her power points. She's only a 21 for Vita. That's all right. That's fine. She is, after all, the younger daughter. What else does she have? Oh, I forgot. Right, they both start with a bandage. Let me give a bandage to Indy over here. And she also starts with a ritual. So we get to pick from the ritual deck. And we're just going to pick it randomly here. Let me make sure I mix it up. And she's going to start with the ritual Energy Flux. Gather earthly energies to revitalize your group. All characters fully recover their power points. Ooh, that sounds like a cool ritual. All right. So that's a great way to re-energize her power points. And on the bottom it says, of course, Occult 9. And these are things that we will be rolling against when we check to see if they work or not. All right. I believe she is set up. She has our tech token. She has her little person dice. But, however, the only other difference here in game setup that I came across is if you're playing a 2-character game, which we are. I guess we have to scale it a little bit differently. We're going to give each character an extra bandage tokens. Fabulous, I'll throw those in. Give each character a random animal or militia companion card, only if the character has a free companion slot. Give each character a random boon token. Okay, so we have to do a couple things here. All right, so each character can have up to 2 companions, and since we don't have any right now, I feel like Miriam would have, we're going to give her an animal companion. So let's pull one of these randomly here. And she is going to start the game with a dove. That's very cool. All right, +1 to trickery and +1 to search rolls. Ooh, I like that. All right, that makes sense for her. And I think for Indy here, let's give him a militia companion. That seems to make the most sense while he's out and about. Perhaps he has a loyal servant or bodyguard of some sort helping him. And his is going to be, a tinkerer. +8 might, and you can never break or lose your equipped weapons. Interesting. All right, well, we'll take him with us to see how that works. All right, I'm going to give each of them an extra bandage here, and they get to pick one of these boon tokens, and they're going to have a little ability on the back. I'm just going to stick them all into a little bag for now, I think, because we're supposed to draw them randomly. So let's put them in here and mix them up. And let's give Indy a boon of recover all power points. Wow, that's a great one. And his daughter will get add D6 to any die roll. Ooh, that's a nice one too. All right, so I feel like they're pretty well equipped here, and we are ready to head out into the world. Let's see if there's anything else I have to do. With that, I think we're ready to begin Candle in the Darkness. We start at dusk, Church of the Crossroads. So we're going to take our little party marker and we're going to stick it right here at the Church of the Crossroads. And it says, as you enter the land of Kreml, you start to feel the darkness suck the joy out of your group as the cold wind whistles through the nearly barren trees of early winter. As the last light of the sun fades and leaves you in a starless night, even the sliver of the moon is hidden behind thick and dark clouds. In the distance, you hear wolves howling as if daring you to keep moving this night. The church of the Crossroads, the entrance to Kreml, is a short distance down the muddy road. The church has seen better days, but it's still almost always a welcome sight for weary travelers. You've been summoned to Wayland Point by Argus Hilbrand, a trading partner of your family's for years. The message sent was cryptic and sounded urgent. Despite the years you've known him, you don't recall ever sensing a fear that shook him as badly as he was when he put quill to parchment. His normally simple yet clean handwriting was jittery and splashed with ink blots that fell from the quivering plume between inkpot and parchment. First choice of the game. You can either choose to stop at the Church of the Crossroads or continue on your journey. So, what would we like to do, eh? Now, if we decide to stop at the Church of the Crossroads, we can take advantage of its services. There's a handy little card here that tells you all the town services, and the generic one available for Church of the Crossroads is we can learn an ability, or we can spend some coins to do a prayer. And remember, our people also have special abilities as well. I believe, yeah, Mr. Jones here, Indy has one for Church of the Crossroads. He can also do some research. Now, we don't have any money at this point. There really isn't any reason to stop at the Crossroads. Instead, I think we will head on out. So since we don't want to do anything at the Church of the Crossroads, we want to head over to Wayland Point. First thing we need to do is start with who's the leader for this expedition, and we're going to start with Indian. We have this nice little day and night leader token, and it'll start with him. And once he takes his turn, we're going to move the token to the night side and give it to Miriam. And that way it'll go back and forth between day and night, each leader taking a turn. Now, when you have the leader token, you're going to be the one in charge of movement. And for that, we're going to look at their stride value. Both of us have a stride of 4, so that's not a problem. And what that means is we can move 4 spaces along the road here to Wayland. We can also, if we want, go off-road. And for one whole movement, move into this uncharted territory. And then for a whole movement, move out. Now, that would take us to Wayland much quicker. However, we have 2 separate event decks. One event deck is for when you're on the road. The other is if you decide to go off-road. And these are much more dangerous than these. So if there isn't a real reason for haste, you probably want to stay on the road, which is what we're going to do. So Indy here is going to take us out of the church. 1, 2, 3, 4. And because we end our turn there, we're going to have to draw an event card. And I think that's probably a pretty good time for us to pause the game and pick up next time with what happens to our father-daughter duo on the road to Wayland Point.